Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. Hometown Ticketing is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection podcast and to provide schools nationwide with the best options for digital ticketing for their events. Visit their website at hometownticketing.com to learn how they can make digital ticketing possible and simple at your school. Thank you to Hometown Ticketing for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch-Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Danny Shwam, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Highland High School, my alma mater. Welcome to the podcast, Danny.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Hutch. It only took you 10 years to get me, but it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, not a problem. Let's have you begin by sharing where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Yeah. I grew up in Southern California, born and raised there, all through all my youth and high school and college. Went to East Los Angeles College, played a little baseball. Then after I got married and stuff, but I still wanted to finish up my degree. After I got done playing ball, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I wanted to coach. I knew that, so my dad told me, "Hey, if you want to finish up your degree, you want to get it, you come up here for half tuition while I'm still coaching at the University of Utah." So in 1983, I moved to Utah to finish up my degree.
Perfect. And your degree was in what subject?
Say what?
What subject was your degree in?
Oh, physical education and a minor in coaching back when Jane Minor taught the coaching minor class.
I'm familiar with that. All right, let's have you talk about youth sports in the LA area. I'm sure you played a ton of them.
Yeah.
Talk about your experiences with baseball and probably other sports.
Well, the one thing was different. You play year round. Just about any sport you could play, you played year round. Growing up when I grew up, you were able to go and hang out at the ballpark and play over the line or whatever. You just pick up basketball games everywhere. Football, you could play 7-on-7 anywhere, 3-on-3 anywhere. The nice thing growing up in LA was that a different place back in those days than it is today. I every so often I go back to my old school that is completely different. But I have fond memories of my youth. Grew up in a small town called Southgate, and it was kind of a cool place. Went to junior high there, high school there. Good experience, good athletic experience for sure. Back in those days too, the AD was my history teacher, and if you got him to say how'd you do yesterday, that's about all the time you ever saw him. You saw him in the history class, like, how'd you do yesterday? I tell him, he go, okay, good, that's all you need to know.
Excellent. I'm going to have you follow up because I'm not sure a lot of today's listeners, I understand what over the line is, and you understand what over the line is, but I'm going to need you to explain that a little bit for some of our younger listeners.
Well, it's trust me, the first time I tried to incorporate that over here at Highland, especially when I was a head coach, and even now, you're right, coach, what is that? So I explained it to him. You got a hitter, you got a guy who throws like a soft top pitch, you have a line, you have to hit it over to get swing points, you catch a fly ball, you're out. It's just kind of a continuous game, no running, no just swinging the bat and playing defense. You can move all your guys in behind everything's got to be caught before the line. And if it goes past the line on a ground ball, it's considered a point. Fly ball, catch it, you're out, fly ball drops, it's a point. And you just switch the team as you go. You can play it with 6 guys. You can play it with 4 guys. You can play with the whole team if you want. And we've done that before over here once I taught them how to play it. And it was kind of a fun way to end a practice. And, they just thought they learned the newest, coolest thing they've ever learned before. I'm going, dudes, this has been going on since the 50s.
No, that's exactly right. And I'm glad you explained that once again for our younger listeners, because I think I had a guest a couple of months ago that mentioned over the line, and I had some of the younger ADs say, what is that? And so the great thing about it is you can play with 4, 5, 6, 10.
Absolutely. That's the fun part of that. You can play with how many of your kids you can put together and ride your bikes in the park and play all day long, actually.
There you go. Danny, let's have you talk for a minute about the mentors in your life, parents, teachers, coaches, people that have made a difference when you
Mentors
were
in my
growing
life,
up.
and one thing back in high school, of course, that's why I do believe in the high school experience. My mentors were a lot in high school. My baseball coach, Ruben Rodriguez, was a big influence on myself. My basketball coach, Coach Self, football guys, but a lot of old timers we had a lot of guys there. So a lot of my influences, mentors came really in my high school years when I was trying to decide what I was going to do in life. I knew I could play baseball at a high enough level, but never get to the big leagues. So I better find a different way and different talking. Now, as I've gotten older, not trying to be anything, but I'm being honest, but guys like yourself, guys like Jamie, guys like Dave Boyack, as I've gotten into the profession, are big influences on what I do. Because as a new AD, I couldn't have asked for better guys to sit down with me, talk with me, answer any question I had, no matter how stupid it is, but give me their experiences. And it helped me move along. But most of my experiences and my mentors were at my young years when I was a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader. And I think that's what the value of high school coaching really is, and athletic directors play in a high school, because your athletic directors at the college level, that's a big politic game, big financial game. High school's not. It's still grassroots. You better have that connection with your kids, with the coaches, to make them have a good experience. And of course, one of my mentors, and obviously I don't call him a mentor, but a person I really look up to is my dad, and watching him coach the kids he's coached, all the players throughout the years, but seeing the feedback, the dialogue, the caring on both sides. That's the kind of relationship I always wanted with my players, and I think it did, even professionally I do it, and my high school kids for sure. That's how I got into pro baseball. It really was my high school coach ended up being transferred here to Salt Lake to coach the Trappers in 1987. And they lost their hitting coach. He knew I lived here. I was all done playing, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to come on our staff? That you live here in town?" And I said, "Yeah." So I came down, interviewed with the ownership group, and I interviewed with the GM. And then they flew a guy in from Milwaukee, one of the big shots in Milwaukee. And next thing I know, I'm coaching the Trappers in '87. And lo and behold, that was the year we won 29 games in a row. Right. So I thought coaching, that's pretty easy. Boy, 29 in a row, I can do that every year. Yeah. Then lo and behold, I thought, no, you really can't. That's a once in a lifetime thing.
No, that's funny. You brought up the Trappers, so let me ask you a follow-up, because I'm trying to think back. Do you know a fellow named Steve Pearson that was with the Trappers?
Sure, I know Steve really well. Steve was our GM, I think, in '87.
He was GM, a Highland High graduate also.
That sure was.
And it was maybe that year or the year after, he helped us out when I was coaching at Jordan High.
Sure.
And I can't find my Trappers jacket, but he got me a Trappers jacket, the button up front with the Trappers. And of course, that was before, the long winning streak. So that was awesome. Let's talk for a minute, Danny, about, so you came here in '83. I don't know when it is you got to Highland, but I want to talk about, obviously you're a hitting coach for the Trappers. Somehow you got into high school teaching. Somehow that turned into being an AD. So tell us how that all happened.
Okay. It was a little bit of a journey. Yes, I got here in '83, finished up my degree. In the meantime, I was coaching at Olympus, just coaching baseball as a paraprofessional, whatever. I inherited a nice club. We won it a little bit. Then my first job, really full-time job, was at Roland Hall. I was hired by George Matthews, at the time was the AD and the principal. And I really got the job because of my dad, for one thing, and because Lynn Archibald had some vested interest in there, the old basketball coach at Utah.
Right.
You remember. Lynn called the AD, said, "You're trying to build a program. I've got the perfect guy for you, Coach Back's son. He can come in." And we didn't have basketball. We didn't have baseball. We didn't have nothing. Roland Hall wanted to finally get into the athletic realm, and they didn't know how to go find a coach. Didn't know how to, so they hired me. So I was the golf coach, the baseball coach, the basketball coach. Anything they could put on my plate, I did. And so that I was there for 8 years. And I still remember the first year I was there, we had 6 players play on the basketball team. That's it. We had 6. Played a full schedule. Didn't win many games. We had to play a JV and a varsity, and those kids were tired out. By the last year I was at Roll Hall, 8 years later, 2 years back, but we played for the state title.
That's awesome.
And then one of my owners with the Trappers, Mark Van Wagner, who you know.
I know him
Mark
very well.
Yep. Mark called me up and said, look, you want to get in, you want to get a job as a baseball coach at 4A, 5A level. I said, yeah, I want to do that because I'm gonna get you in touch with our principal here at Highland, and we're gonna get you hired. And lo and behold, I got hired and took over the baseball program in '93, and I'm still here. And then when I got done coaching, I went over to Northridge for a couple of years, and and I went to West for a couple of years. But I stayed at Highland the whole time. Then when I got back, finally our principal said, "Look, why don't you just go into why don't you start being?" And Missy said, "Why don't you just become an AD? I mean, you've done everything there is to do in high school. You coach high school football, basketball, baseball. You've been around everything. You'd be a perfect person to be an athletic director because you've run programs, you've been around programs, you know how it should look." So Missy reached out, and between my principal and Missy, they both said, "Hey, let's make you an AD, and you can be Missy's assistant." And so that's kind of how I got into being an AD. I was just kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm still coaching professional baseball back then. So they say, "Hey, you can leave every summer and do your summer gig, but you come back and you'll just be the AD." And I still teach, but that's okay. But that's kind of how I fell into the AD job. I wanted to do something different that impacted everybody, not just the baseball team or not just the basketball team, but everybody, girls, women, all their sports, and how I can have some kind of an impact to what goes on.
And what year was that when you became the assistant AD?
I was 2000. This is my 10th year, so 2014 maybe.
Okay, perfect.
And I was done being. They made sure I was done being a head coach. You don't want to keep trying to find. I said, no, I don't want to be a head coach anymore. So they said, okay, well, you can still be an assistant. So I still assist football. I still assist in baseball, but then my job is the AD job. And it's been a wonderful journey up to this point. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Some are, we talk about at conferences all the time. Some are very stressful. Some are very challenging. Between all the things and the kids are going through a very challenging time as well as parents are too, and so are coaches.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you this, Danny. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failures and disappointment. I mean, that's a good question because I've failed quite a bit. I've been.
Haven't we all?
I guess, professional baseball wise, I've been, let go 5 times. I've always seemed to get a job because somebody always believes in me, and I get another job. I think sometimes there are issues where maybe communication could be better, how I can get, I seem to get overwhelmed and then I don't know how to get out of my own way. My wife says, you put so much stuff on your plate, you'll never dig out from underneath it. And so you start making decisions sometimes that aren't the most sound because you want to get that one thing off your plate, get to the next thing, get to the next thing. And, you need to find a better balance of that. I look at failures as a learning tool anyways. I always have. I think it's served me well, certainly in professional baseball, because pro baseball, and as professional athletes, it's not always your fault you get let go. I mean, I remember when I was with the Florida Marlins the first time around, and we won a World Series. The very next year we had a down year. The whole front office went. My farm director who hired me went. My farm director went. The scouting department went. And they just said, well, then all your people got to go. I said, well, I just won a championship at my level at A-ball. Yeah, you got to go because all you guys have to win, and we got to bring new guys in. For the new bosses. And I said, oh, so sometimes it's not even your fault. Sometimes it is. You have bad years. You just got to live with the bad years, and you got to move forward. That's the biggest thing I've learned. You got to learn to move forward with this stuff. You can't dwell on your whys or the what fors. I mean, trust me, I do. but sometimes it's hard to get out of your own way sometimes. And you start thinking about all the things you could have done, should have done. You're wasting your time doing that, I think. I think when you evaluate yourself, do what you're going to do, then move forward so you can do a better job the next time around, wherever you go and whatever level you're at. I try to teach coaches that same thing and kids that same thing. The grass isn't always the greener on the other side, and you got to go through that process. I get it. Everybody has to fail a little bit to have success.
No, that's very well said. Thanks for sharing that. Let's go back to 2014 now. That's 9-10 years ago. And I want to know from your perspective, you've been in the AD job for 10 years now. How is the job of being the director of athletics different now than it was 10 years ago? And I throw out this caveat. We're going to throw COVID out because COVID was a mess for everybody. So besides the COVID mess, how is your job different?
COVID's the obvious one. No, it changed a lot. COVID did change everything. And I think the job has been way more demanding now. There are more and more, I'm sure ADs are going through like we have here. There's more and more, or less and less, I should say, coaches on campus. And it is hard because these people have lives too. They have bills to pay, families to feed, but you want them to be invested in these kids, but they can only get here a certain time and having to navigate through that has been a challenge because over the 10 years we've had a lot of coaching change over because they can just get up and walk away when things don't look right. As a person who's invested in the school, maybe a teacher in building guy, you got to plug through that. You got to figure it out because you're a teacher, you're in the building. But when you're not, having to organize guys and women as well to put the school first is tough. But that's what you want. You want them to put your school first, your kids first, and they should. However, it's hard. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's challenging, and I always hate the turnover in coaches. I hate the turnover. And I think the biggest challenge too, Hutch, has been the student by themselves. It seems to me over the last 10 years, I'm sure for you as well, it's just too easy to get up and leave and go to the next school. It's almost become its own little mini transfer portal. I don't like what he said to me, I'm leaving. I don't like what she did to me, I'm hitting ninth in the batting order. I was always hitting first, I'm leaving. I'll find some school that hit me first. And that's so different than what it used to be. You were at your school, you found a way to get through those 4 years or 3 or whatever it is. Now it's not, it's almost like, let me find my way out the door so I can find that perfect setting. And I'm telling you, as you know, as long as you've been in the game as a coach and an AD, it's hard to find that perfect fit that's going to give you everything. And I think that's a big challenge. A challenge for ADs is a challenge for coaches, a challenge for an AD to help a coach. Like, what do we do with all these kids that are threatening to leave? And I mean, my door, as you know, Jamie and I've talked a lot about kids coming in every day. Well, I'm leaving. What do I got to do? Well, let's talk about why you're leaving first. I'm not letting any kid just walk out the door without having a conversation. I don't believe in that mantra. Oh, well, he's gone. No, I'm going to find out why, and what can we do to make it better, and by not giving them the world, but just figure out why. So maybe you can make those corrections. So in that respect, it's changed a lot. A lot of it has to do with, as you know, AAU, travel ball. All these guys got individual coaches that tell them you're the best things in sliced bread. Well, of course they're going to tell you that. You're paying them to tell you that. We're going to tell you the truth because you're not paying us anything to tell you the truth about your level of ability and what you got to do to work on. When you're paying a guy $100 a night, he's going to tell you you're so good that you're better than Mike Trout. You should be the center for the Angels today. And he takes that to the school saying, well, my hitting coach said I should be in the big leagues now, so I'm out of here.
No, that is so very well said. And we could spend 2 or 3 podcasts just talking about the transfer portal, the unofficial transfer portal in high school. And now I can't imagine what the next year is going to bring with NIL and all that kind of stuff. But go ahead.
My sister is a sports agent, and she is, and California allows it. She's already dealing with high school NIL kids. junior high NIL kids already. And I'm going, I told my sister, why are we even representing those kids? You can't. No, NIL is a different ballgame in California. It's legal. You can do it. I said, well, Utah hasn't gone there yet, but it's coming.
No, yes, for sure. It's coming.
And that's going to change a whole nother dynamic. What school's going to offer NIL deals to these kids to stay?
Yeah, and that's I think my personal opinion is it's going to bring college football back to the way it was in the 60s, when you're only going to have 8 to 10 programs that are really good because they've got all that NIL money, and they're going to stockpile those athletes. And it's going to be just like it was when they rat-holed all those kids way back in the 60s, when you only had so many good good kids, and they stockpiled them. So let me go here, and you've mentioned this. So your father, and I actually met your father before I met you, and I got to know him fairly well, better than most people. Those 4 years I coached the Utah Falcons, because we'd have him over a couple of times a year, and he was a big fan of those women. But for those who don't know or haven't picked it up, obviously your dad's Ron McBride, former coach at Utah, former coach at Weber State, pretty much a legend in this state. But I want you to share with our audience, the question to you is what it's like being the son of a famous coach. But I know that there's stories that you can tell, but one story I want you for sure to tell is the one you told me just a couple of weeks ago when we were down at the conference in St. George, because this is a classic, when you were up at the Ledges golf course.
Oh yeah. So I was up at Ledges golf course, and I went to go in with my nephews and my son, and they all paid, they left. I was last one in, and the guy goes, "You're good, coach." I'm going, "Oh, how does he know I'm a coach?" But okay. He goes, "That guy over there paid for you." So I'm out on the golf course. I said, no. He'll seriously, he paid for you. He said, "You deserved it for all your good service." I go, "Man, word travels fast by this AD conference. I've done such good service." So I'm driving the course, and I see the golf pro, or the marshal. I say, "Hey, I really appreciate you paying for me, but I didn't really need it. Oh, for all you've done this state, and all the wonderful things you've done for these football athletes," and I said, "and things of that nature, you deserve to golf for free anywhere you go." And I went, "What?" And I finally realized, he said, "Yeah, Coach Mack, you should have to pay for nothing." Oh shit! Either I look 83 or this guy's blind. But that's happened before. I remember, go back to Trapper days. I remember my dad, I was with the Trappers in '89. He just got hired, came back from Arizona. And that summer, we had one of the news stations wanted to do an interview with me. I don't know why, I was just the assistant coach, but they came out, and the first thing the guy says, "Hey, so coach, I really want to know this. Everybody really wants to know, how are you going to coach the Trappers and the University of Utah football team all together? How are you going to do that? Your summertime spent doing camps, get ready for your guys. How are you going to do that?" I said, "Interview's over." Stop real quick. He said, "What?" I said, "I'm not. That's my dad. That's not me." "Oh, you're kidding. We were hyping it up about how Coach Matt comes in. He's coaching professional baseball. He's going to coach football. He's going to be wonderful." "No, it's not me. It's not. He does football. I do baseball." I almost got kicked out of a game at Weber State for crossing out of the coaching box. I was at Weber, I went down to the sideline all the way down to almost the end zone. And the referee comes by, the side judge comes by and says, "Hey, coach, you got to get back in the box." I'm going, "Who are you talking to? I'm not the coach." He comes back again. "Hey, if you don't get back in the box, I'm going to throw a flag. You can't be in the end zone." And I go, "What?" So then the white hat comes over to me and said, "Coach," I said, "What? Stop, because I'm going to have to give you a flag." I said, "No, the guy down there is the head coach." I look down there, look at him. My dad takes off his headset. He's saying a few nice words to me, like, "Get the F off the field, dude, before I get in trouble." And so he goes, "Oh, you're not Coach Mack?" I said, "No, that guy's Coach Mack." "Okay, you can go wherever you want then." So I had those instances all the time. The first time it ever came out really was that '89 stuff with the news media guy, who was all hyped. Coach Mack just got hired, but he also coaches professional baseball. He's also going to coach college football. How's that going to work? No, wrong guy.
No, well, you do. For people that obviously don't know you or your father well.
Right.
If you took a quick glance, you look the same, but you clearly don't look 83. I will give you that. But your dad doesn't look 83 either. He
Well,
may
I
look like
appreciate
he's in his 70s, but
he'd appreciate that too, because he doesn't try to act 83. Trust me, this guy's on the
yeah.
go more than I am. He wears me out.
Yeah, well, that is so classic. Next time I see him, I'm going to have to ask him about you being on the sidelines of Weber State. That's classic. Let me have you talk for a minute, Danny, about the recent UIAAA conference. We'll talk about the UIAAA in general, how you got involved, and then I want you to share your thoughts on the recent conference. It was just a couple of weeks ago in St. George.
I got involved that first spring because Missy basically said you have to go. I said okay. She said no, you'll have a great time. Blah blah blah. And so I went down the first time, and I remember the first speakers I had. I had Dave Boyack, who I didn't know Dave very well, and I had Jamie, who I didn't know really, except Jamie and I knew a little bit because we're both baseball guys. I have been into them before, so they were my first speakers, and I had this Missy baby sit in the front row. I said, "Geez, what? We're in the classroom here?" He goes, "Yeah, you're sitting in the front row. You're gonna learn everything." I said, "All right," but I started listening, going, "Okay, do I take notes? What do I do?" As I just started listening, going, God, I started thinking there's a lot to this job than I even envisioned. Like I just not just show up, have a name tag that says AD and you're all good.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was done with that conference, I had a greater appreciation for what you did, for what guys like Jamie, Boyack, all those guys did and do. Going, God, there's a lot to this job. I better start learning it because it's important. It's important to your schools, it's important to your kids, and it's important to your coaches. And you wear all those hats. And you're kind of like, you are definitely the complaint department, and you got to get used to that. And it's every sport. It's not just baseball, basketball, it's every sport. They need help in some respect. So after that conference was over, I had a greater appreciation, like, I got a lot to learn if I want to be successful at this job. And that was the biggest thing, working with Missy, where she was very, very communicative. You've dealt with her, she's very communicative.
Yes.
But a very good teacher or mentor that moved me along and forced me to move me along and gave me more responsibility every year. And I kind of learned on the fly, but that conference was amazing to me. I didn't know what to expect. All I heard was golf. I said, "Oh shit, I'll go there." But no more to disc golf, even though I'm a bad golfer. Shit. But so she, it was good. I walked away with a greater appreciation, but also a greater idea of what the job was going to be and what I had to do. And every year I go down, I learn something new. I learn from a new speaker, a new presenter. And it's just something we've talked about before, but it's a different way we talk about it. This year with you and Jamie and Ron and Missy did that stress thing. Couldn't hit a better point. One of the best, that's probably one of the best classes I've taken, because it has become very important how we all have to be able to maneuver through that minefield, because it is. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And if you can't do that, then you're no good to anybody. Not yourself, not your family, not your school, not your kids, not your athletes. So that was a great one. It was really fun to listen to. You guys are very, I like the way you guys presented. But that's what I say. Every day and anybody who doesn't want to go down, you need to do it. I like it. I do. For me, it's been fun. It's been very engaging, and I like that. I mean, like I said, I've made a lot of times I go down there nowadays. I feel like the old timer now. Shit, I don't know half the guys in the class. I don't know how you feel.
Well, my very first conference, I think, was 1987. And all through the 90s, we moved to St. George, I want to say in the spring of 98 was the first conference in St. George. And I believe that I'm the only one left that remembers the half-day conferences that were here in the fall, right around Halloween time, Airport Hilton, Holiday
Oh,
Inn,
really? Wow.
Triarch, that type of thing. Because I think, and there's people now that don't remember that we used to be up the street at the old Holiday Inn, which is now the Red Lion. And there's people that
Oh, yeah.
don't know anything different than being at
No.
the Abbey Inn. So that tells you something. So thanks for sharing that. Let's have you talk for a minute about the importance of certification. You've become certified in the past, year and a half.
Mhm.
Talk about that journey for you and how important it is for athletic directors to be certified.
I think it's really important to be certified. I didn't see the value of it in some respects, even though I love the conference, but I'm a nervous test taker. I really am. I'm going, God, I don't want to take this test and then not do well or whatever. I have to retake it. But finally it got to a point where, you got to do this and we're going to help you through. I mean, Rich reached out to me, Ron reached out to me, and then Jamie came down to my school and was my proctor and just really made me feel comfortable, confident that I could do it, and gave me all the material beforehand so I could practice and went through my book. And so, but I did know it's something that's important. And it's something I'm very proud of. I mean, I've got a lot of awards, a lot of different things, but my certificate is sitting on my wall in my room, and I'm more proud of that than any of my manager of the years or coach of the year trophies I've had over the years. I'm more proud of that than anything else. And once again, it's because of the positiveness of a lot of your RADs in this state, that were really good with me about picking me up and saying, we're fine, you're good, you're gonna be great. And sure enough, it worked out that way.
That's excellent. Danny, tell us, what's one common myth about being an athletic director that you'd like to debunk?
But what to say what now?
What's one common myth about being an athletic director that you'd like to debunk, that tell the public that's not really the way it is?
Yeah, the one common thing is going to the game is very minor to what really happens. All the things you do is behind the scenes. So going and sitting in a chair and watching 4 quarters of basketball or 9-inning baseball game, whatever, that's the bare bones minimum. And that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is all the things you do beforehand, how you treat your people your visiting team, when they come in, you're visiting ADs, you're visiting principals. I make sure when they come to our gym or baseball, I greet them first. Officials, you're the first guy that sees the officials. From the freshman game all the way to the varsity game, wrestling match, baseball game, softball game, you're the first guy. And so it is way more than just go to a game and sit there and cheer for your team and say, oh well, you lost. But no, it's way more than that. So I think people sometimes may get into this job, maybe, and say, God, I can just go watch games all day. That's easy. Yeah, that's like very minor. And really, if you're doing your job the correct way, you ain't watching the game anyways.
True enough.
You're not.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah, next thing you know, it's the end of the ball game. You go, hey, shit, now what do we do? The game's over. And who won? I saw about something. Who won? Let me know. Let me know who won.
That's great. You've been an AD for 10 years now, Danny. What's the favorite part of your job?
Now, the favorite part of my job, it really is being around the kids, enjoying their successes, helping them with their failures, having a close relationship with coaches. Coaches come down and see me all day long in my office, and we just sit and talk. They know I have a closed door, and just hearing what they're going through. So the favorite part of my job really is the communication piece of it. And I think that's what really makes the job fun. But the most fun, it really is the kids. It really is the success or how to help. And it's really the fun of the job is the communication part with other ADs, the officials, the visiting ADs that come in, or the principals, vice principals, make them feel at home. That this is welcome to our school, because you're really the face of what's going on when it's happening in your school and in your building. And anything goes wrong, they come to you anyway. So you better make sure they know who to go to, as opposed to running around saying, hey, I can't find anybody. But that part of it's the fun job. I love that part of it. I love the interaction, love the kids. see their successes, see them move on. Hopefully some will get chances at the next level. That part of it's a lot of fun to me.
Yeah.
A lot of hours. My wife
Sure.
doesn't know who I am sometimes. Hey, who are you, stranger?
There you go. Let's finish up with a couple of questions. Danny, the first being, you've got 2 suggestions for a brand new athletic director. They need to follow Danny's 2 suggestions in order to be successful. What would your 2 suggestions be for that new AD?
My suggestions would be, make sure that you're open and you're available and you're for everybody. And that comes from the freshman game to the varsity game, from the girls softball to the baseball team, to be available to all of them, anything they need. We get so caught up sometimes just moving around that we don't hear or see what the needs are. Make sure the needs of each program and see if you can fix them. If you can, you can't, but you make sure you're the guy that's always there and always available. What can I do, if anything, to help you? And be at these games and really engage with the kids, the coaches, that they feel comfortable you're there. So I think that's part of it, and get to know all your people. As fast as you can get to know all your people that are in place, even the comings and goings are a lot, but try to make sure see everybody, everybody, and you try to figure out what their needs and their wants are. Some you can't even do. I mean, sometimes I get a ridiculous list. I'm going, half of this list I can't do for sure. I can't do an indoor football stadium. Sorry, I can't do it. But yeah, it's okay. It's a wish list. It's something that would be, maybe fun one day, but it's not going to happen. But for a new AD, the knowledge that you guys give, at the conferences, you got to do it. You got to go. You got to engage yourself. You got to sit there and you got to listen, because these guys that are speaking, they've all been through it, done through it, and understand, take bits and pieces that are important. And then just engage yourself in your schools, your coaches, your people, your assistant coaches. Your freshman coaches got to make him feel like he's as important as the varsity coach. So he feels really good about he's being supported. Those freshman coaches, most of them are off-campus guys. So you got to make them feel that they're welcome. They're going to get supported. You're going to be able to watch them coach, watch them play, and help them what they need something when the game is over.
That's excellent. Danny, we'll finish with this question. What question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
What question? So the one question that you failed, you didn't ask me a question. I'm going to ask you a question. Why in the heck are you getting out? Why are you retiring, dude? You're too good at what you do.
Well, the answer to that is I've been the executive director since '98. And that's pretty much 25 years. I've been out of high school 10 years coming up in July. And like I said at the conference, I don't want to be Vince Carter sitting on the end of the bench. I want to get out while I still have some memories. And it's time. I think we've grown it so big, so many people, yourself included, and everybody throughout the state. We've grown it into such a nice thing. Just let some younger people get some of those leadership opportunities. So it'll be different, but it's going to be better in a lot of ways, because they won't have that old guy to worry about.
Yeah, well, you've been good. You talk about my father being good for the state. Well, you've been very good to the state too, in your own way, at the high school level and some of the college level. But you've been very good at helping the state move forward. We've come a long ways with a lot of new challenges. I'm sure when you started from where you are now, the challenges are way different. And
no question.
It's hard. Yeah.
That is no question. And that's very nice of you to say that. And so with those kind words, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Once again, our guest has been Danny Shwam, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Highland High School. Danny, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Hutch. I appreciate you.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.